Welcome, everybody. There we go. Friday, June 14th. Yes, John Aravosis here. Welcome all. Happy Friday. Woo. Excuse me. I was actually early and then kind of dawdled, and then I looked at the clock and went, I'm late. So what do you do? Anyway, hello all. Hopefully there's not some nasty ad taking your time at the beginning of the show. Sorry about that. Somebody must pay the bills. Anyway, hello, guys. Let me get TikTok rolling here. I've got my new Be Kind t-shirt on. I got it on Amazon, but it's pretty cool. I like it. I'm looking for like new fun t-shirts, and I've been very surprised at finding things on Amazon that are actually pretty decent and they fit well, which is kind of bizarre because I have the hardest time finding clothes that, you have to try on like a million clothes to make them fit. Anyway, all right, going live on TikTok. There we go. Yeah, I can tell it's showing you poor people an ad because you're delayed. I'm guessing. Here's TikTokers. Hey, Papa Duke. All right, there we go. There are the TikTokers. Woo-woo. Good evening, all. Oh, as always, why don't you introduce yourselves? Hey, Ash, introduce yourselves. We'll wait a minute or so just for things to get rolling, for people to arrive. So your new stepmom, that's funny. Names like that always make me laugh. Anyway, so yes, welcome. Thank you, FML, for the rose. Evening from London, Michael. But yes, guys, on TikTokers, give a little shout out where you're from, if you would. I think it's always fun to see where people are hailing from. The word hail is another good word. Hey, Elizabeth, thank you for the gift. Anyway, la, la, la. I did yoga today. I'm very happy. I haven't done yoga in like a year or longer, maybe 2. Thank you, Mark Starr. And I used to do like during COVID, I started doing yoga, and I was really enjoying it because it was like for relaxation, I was trying to do it, and it really helped a lot. And then I just sort of fell out of the practice. And anyway, I'm trying to start again because even now doing that 1 hour of yoga, I feel so much better. So anyway, hey, Mary, thank you for the bear. Anyway, yeah. So guys, give a quick shout out where you're from, and then we'll get rolling. Hey, Life, thank you for the gift, and Rocco as well. Sorry, UK. Rocco again. Doug. I was going to go dog. Doug. I think I can pronounce the name Doug. Hey, Doug Rawson. Thank you for the team bracelet. And Rose. Anyway, yeah, so we're ready to get rolling here, guys. Thank you, Marcy. Welcome, everybody. I'm John Aravosis. This is my show. We do this every Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, US. Thank you, Richard, for the gift. Basically, cover the news from Ukraine. The news from Ukraine, the news from Washington, D.C. about Ukraine, I should say. Thank you, Richard. And basically go through the first half of the show. I go through the news, try to find stories that I think are interesting, that I think tell a larger story about what's going on in Ukraine. Thank you, Richard, for more gifts. And Lamb Chop as well. And Jeremy, lots of gifts coming in on TikTok. And then take the second half of the show, take your guys' questions, your comments, and basically open it up to kind of a free-for-all. So that's the way we do it. Let's get rolling, all right? Just to remind, so first thing, yes, this is my new rainbow shirt. Although, okay, how can you guys see it, Marcy? Because you know what's funny? This is funny, actually, with TikTok. On my end, on TikTok, it cuts the shirt off right here where my finger is, okay? For you guys on TikTok, are you seeing more of my shirt? Because this is where the bottom of the screen is, where my finger is going across. That's the bottom of the screen for me on TikTok. So I'm checking the TikTokers here. Yes, what? You can see the blue? Oh my God. Oh, how funny. Oh, that's crazy. That's a little weird. I'm surprised. Wow. Yeah, Ash, thanks. That's funny. Okay, that is funny. Because I've got a rainbow shirt on and people were commenting and I was like, how do you see the rainbow? You know what? This happened the other day too. When I wear like the Vyshyvanka shirts and stuff, you guys comment and I'm always like afraid it's cutting off too much of the Vyshyvanka, the Ukrainian shirt. Thank you, Alan. That's very funny. Yeah, any case, I went on Amazon and bought a few more t-shirts because I wanted new t-shirts and I like red because red's like a good color on me. But I went and I just started Googling and I've got like a couple rainbow shirts and I got a dinosaur shirt because I love dinosaurs. And it's actually, I don't know if Robert's here tonight. It's got like Robert P. I'm forgetting Robert's last name. Maybe Pummel? Dinosaur Robert. But he's the one who got us the wonderful dinosaur gifts. Remember? All the bones and everything I was showing you guys? But it's got like tons of dinosaurs all over and it's the coolest t-shirt. But off of like Amazon, which I'm kind of surprised. Anyway, it should read Be Kind. It does read Be Kind. Yes, at the bottom. There you go. Be kind. Be kind. Anyway, okay, guys. So tomorrow morning, thank you, Tiger, for the gift. Tomorrow morning, remember, we've got our coffee talk. That is a special show I do almost every Saturday morning for the monthly subscribers, basically the folks who are our paid subscribers. Thank you, Barry. It's every Saturday morning, usually every Saturday morning, 11 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time US. That's Washington, D.C. or New York City time. And it's a hangout with me and you guys. It's only the paid subscribers, so it's a small group. Thank you, Kevin. On TikTok, usually, and Charles for the gift too, usually we get like, I don't know, 60 to 100 people on TikTok, maybe. Thank you, Tiger Pug. And in the, you get coffee, you get virtual coffee, Tiger or Brash. And on YouTube, maybe we get 12 or 15, I forget. And on Discord, we may get 10. But it's a nice crowd. It's a small crowd. Thank you, Derek and Elizabeth, for the gifts. But it's a nice hangout, basically. Thank you, Bash. So anybody who's a monthly subscriber, that would be those of you on TikTok who have SNN next to your name, like Ash, Tiger, and some of the others. You guys are monthly subscribers, or anybody who has given you a free subscription for the month. Actually, I just I'll let this go. But yes, anybody who's got a free subscription as well, like Otan Bot's got an SNN, Chase has got one. You guys could all join us tomorrow morning. Thank you, Tiger Pug. So yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Vlad often joins us from Ukraine. He joined us last weekend. The weekend before, he was ready to join us and his internet died. But Vlad should join us. Well, Vlad may join us tomorrow morning. Actually, you know what? I'm going to remind Vlad. I always do this when I'm on the show with you guys. Thank you, Adventures. Thank you, Linka. Let me send Vlad a quick message. Hey, we're doing the show again Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. That's New York City time, if you're around. Okay, there we go. That way I won't forget. All righty. Okay, guys. So you are very welcome, Papiga. Or Papika? In Ukrainian, would you say h for the g? I say gamma in Greek. I don't know what you call it in Ukrainian. Papucha. Oh, I know it's papu. Ugh, I knew the u. I'm sorry. I'm not even thinking today. I know u is u. Yeah, papucha. Right. Because you guys, I studied Russian. Thank you, Liv. Thank you, DMR. And thank you, Alex, as well, for the gifts. And in Russian, the gamma, so to speak, is g. But for Ukrainians, it's often h. That's why I was asking. But yes, I knew it was papucha because the u, like Uzhgorod or Ushgorod, I guess is the way Vlad, you guys pronounce it. Anyway, thank you, Kite. Thank you, Linka. All right, guys. So let's go. Actually, mods, maybe if you can help answer some of the questions on some folks were asking on YouTube how much the membership is. I think the baseline membership on YouTube is $4.99 to get access to the weekend show. And you can do more if you can afford more. YouTube is on. I'm talking to folks right now. Yep. Danik says, not really an H. Don't confuse me. Danik. For an American sound, what is it, a huh? Uzhgorod? It's a hard H like huh. That's what I was going to say. It is hard. Yeah. Because Vlad says like Uzhgorod. And I would always say Uzhgorod thinking it's a g. Like again, I speak Greek, so I think of gamma, which is gamma is a little less hard than an American G. But nonetheless, that's what I think of when I read words in Russian. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you, Nicholas. But yeah, but Vlad taught me that it's like a, oh God. So it is like a gamma then. But would you say, okay, so would you say papucha or would you say papuja? You know what I mean? Like this, sorry guys, we're doing a grammar lesson here or not a grammar, but a etymology or whatever, a linguistics lesson here. But papuja or papucha? And not g, because papuga is going to be too hard, I'm guessing. In Greek, we would say g. So like gamma. You wouldn't say gamma, you'd say gamma. G. The hard, okay, papuja is saying hard H. All right, we have a disagreement here between Danik and papuja, which is interesting. Okay, interesting. All right, I'm sticking with the h. All right, let's get rolling here. And thank you, Tseneya, for the rose. Mundashi says can't find it on YouTube. Mundashi, maybe go to YouTube again. If you're on a computer, just refresh the page. If you're on the YouTube's app, maybe close the app and come back. But you guys on YouTube, you're still there, right? Yep. I'm watching. Michael Darling just posted a comment. So YouTubers are still working. It's Parrot in, This is interesting, actually. What is papucha in Ukrainian? Is it parrot? Because isn't a papagallo in Italian? Is a papagallo a parrot? It's some kind, or is that it's some kind of a bird, a papagallo, isn't it? Papucha. But is papagallo a parrot as well in Italian? I'm just trying to remember if anybody remembers. So one of you must know Italian. We must have some Italians out there. My favorite people on the planet, Italians. I could ask Alexa. Alexa, what is the word papagallo in Italian? She make it confused. She gets confused. Papagallo is not a fish. No. Alexa, translate the Italian word papagallo into English.
Papagayo. In English is parrot.
It's a parrot. It's a parrot. Yeah. Actually, I think it got confused with Spanish. It said papagayo. That's funny. So you guys all have the same base word. So in Ukrainian, it's papucha. How interesting. Hey, Rado in Bulgaria, we're doing a little linguistics lesson because somebody was their name on TikTok is papucha, and it means parrot, and it got me thinking of papagallo in Italian, which is parrot. Actually, is papagallo Greek as well? Is that why? Maybe that's why I know it. I may know it from Greek, actually. In Polish, it would be papuga. That's really funny. Interesting that the basis of the word across much of Eastern Europe. So papagallos is Greek then. Okay, that's funny. I'm thinking I knew it because of Italian. I knew it because of Greek. That's funny. That happens sometimes. Like you know words in a foreign language and you sort of forget what language that sounds really obnoxious, but you sort of forget. If you study languages, sometimes you forget what word you know. You forget why you know a word, but you know what it means, but you don't quite know what language it is. Papagel in German. How interesting. And similar in Bulgarian. That's really interesting. Gamma in Greek would be g. So I guess papagalos. I wouldn't say papagalos. That would be American, like papagalos. Papagalos. Or gala. Gala is milk in Greek. Gala. It's g. It's not as bad as Middle Eastern. It's not like Hebrew or Arabic, where they get kind of g, right? But g, like gala. Thank you, Helen. Are you Greek or what there? I'm Greek American, but I did study a lot of Greek. My accent's decent, although I get accused of being very American in Greek, but what do you do? But I do like Greek a lot. It's a fun language. Papagal in Bulgarian. All right. Anybody new on the show is going to be like, they spent 15 minutes. Greek, Macedonian, Canadian. Oh, interesting. They're going to be like, you spent 15 minutes talking about the word parrot. Stop it. Sorry, we're scary. Although maybe this gets rid of the Russian trolls, right? Norwegian too, papagoye or goye. I have no way I'm going to know how to pronounce it there. Half Russian, half Ukrainian. I was wondering. I didn't remember if you told us that before, Antonina. I remember that. Look exactly what you did. Look what you did, Papucha. You got us. I love this stuff, but anybody who isn't into languages is going to be really bored right now. But it's okay. Okay, it is the charm of the show. Sometimes we talk about my dog. Sometimes we talk about food. Other times we talk about language. Finnish too. Now, Finnish, I'm surprised. All right, we'll stop with the Finnish one. Finnish, I'm surprised because your language I thought was so different. Weren't people saying Finnish is like Hungarian and something else, or something like the same root? I want to say. So I'm a little surprised about that. I'm honestly, papagallo sounds like it's a Latin root. I'll bet you. Is Ukraine starting? Let's start. So Yulia, who isn't the same Yulia, I'm sure that's a different Yulia, I will bet, than our regular friend Yulia, but said, is Ukraine starting to win the war? We might as well start with this. I think things are getting interesting. I've said this to you guys before, and in the last couple weeks, I think things have shifted. Now, this does not mean Ukraine is about to win the war, but things have shifted. Things aren't going as well for Russia. There's a bit of a stalemate again. At first, Russia was kind of doing better. We were all getting worried in the East. That died. The Russians also literally died. A NATO official came out the other day and said the Russians were losing 1,000 troops a day in eastern Ukraine around Kharkiv. That big offensive they were doing that scared everybody in the last month. 1,000 troops dying a day, right? Watch it, Tom. Dying a day, right? So it's not just casualties of injured and everything. It's literally dying, which is crazy. Astronomical high number. Very interesting. You're a regular. I assumed you weren't the other Yulia by the way you asked the question, because Yulia wouldn't go, tell me how things are going in Ukraine, because she's literally sitting in Kyiv. Although, where are you? Are you abroad, I'm guessing? Because with the name Yulia, I'm still wondering if you're Ukrainian. But I doubt you're in Ukraine, because otherwise you wouldn't ask me how things are going. But then again, you never know. So things are better. The Ukrainians are hitting more targets. The Ukrainians are destroying more Russian planes. Last night they hit another oil refinery. Thank you, Ernie. The last week, the Ukrainians hit 2 S-400 anti-aircraft batteries. The S-400s are very expensive. I mean, we're talking $500 million with a B, $500 million to $1.2 billion for these S-400 devices. Okay. I mean, huge. S-300s, they took out they went after 3 of them. I think they hit at least 3. Huge deal here. I mean, it's been very interesting the last few weeks. The tempo is picking up. I will say, from people I talk to, I think we've almost got to. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't want to sort of oversell this, right? Thank you, user 336. I don't want to oversell it because, we're obviously worried about how Ukraine's doing, but it just feels like they've picked up the tempo of the attacks and they're leading towards something. Thank you, Fred. It almost feels like the Ukrainians are getting ready to do something. Thank you, Tech Sage. And all of these attacks are preparing for it. For example, honestly, talking to friends about this, some of us, Ukrainian in England, that's why. Okay, nice. I'm kind of wondering if the Ukrainians are going to go after the Kerch Bridge soon, which is the bridge in the south. It just feels like they're picking up a little momentum, which is good. But again, this war isn't ending anytime soon, right? So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Ukraine's got Russia on the run. But we were afraid 2 to 3 weeks ago for Ukraine. Now, I would say they're tied again, but Ukraine's inflicting a lot of damage, which is great. All right, let's keep going here. So Zelensky arrives in Switzerland. Okay, so the big Swiss peace conference is happening this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Interestingly, there's about 92 countries represented, 57 heads of state, which is great. Biden will not be there. He's campaigning in the U.S. because his election's in a few months and obviously not doing as well as some of us would like. Thank you, Sakenas, for the gift. Kamala Harris, our vice president, will be representing Biden in the U.S. at the summit. I will say I'm a little confused about the purpose of these summits. Thank you, Brian. I don't know. I'm just not sure what they accomplish. There's clearly a diplomatic reason for having them. I suspect it's to sort of show, thank you, Danik, to sort of show the world that we're united, 95 or was it 92 countries coming together, on behalf of Ukraine kind of stuff. I think it's a little bit of theater. I can't imagine. I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit of theater. And maybe it's meant to give Ukraine a little more negotiating room with the Russians, where if these 92 countries can agree what should happen and Ukraine agrees, it gives Ukraine a little more backing, right, for the negotiations. I guess it just feels a little. Anyway, I don't want to knock it. I mean, I'm glad it's happening, but who cares, right? I mean, there's just a little bit of it. Nothing's going to come of it. Now, more heads of state were going. More countries were going. The Chinese reportedly, on behalf of the Russians, strong-armed a bunch of developing countries into either not attending or downgrading their attendance from heads of state to just like ministers or ambassadors or things like that. Thank you, Janice. Really freaking obnoxious. I was sort of in my notes writing today, but not surprising for China. I think sometimes we forget what China is. Now, our overlords at TikTok may not like this, but it's the truth and they'll just have to deal with it. China is a communist country. China is a communist dictatorship. The government is not nice. Right? These are not nice people. Chinese people, I'm sure, are lovely. Thank you, Jane. The government, not nice people. It's a communist dictatorship. And they often act like it. And I think we forget that. I mean, even I forget it sometimes because I sit there sometimes and I think of China as a developing country and I'll lump China together, with India or Brazil or South Africa or what. I mean, but you know what I mean? Like again, one of the BRICS, other than Russia. Russia shouldn't even be a BRIC. Who knows what Russia is, right? But I think we make that mistake. We make that mistake of thinking of China as, a developing country that's kind of trying to go the middle road. China's not trying to. India's trying to go in the middle, right? China's not trying to go in the middle. China is trying to replace Russia. China wants to be the center of power in the world, just like America is and wants to be, right? But China wants to be America. I mean, and the Chinese sort of put it out there to pretend like again, like they're India, where we want a multipolar world. We want to be between the superpowers. No. China wants to be the one oppressing you. They saw what the Soviets did. I think they liked it, and they want to take over for the Soviets. They want that role. That's what China wants. So like when China gets involved and basically tries to kill a peace summit, China is once again showing that they're working on behalf of the Russians. They're a partisan in this war. They're involved in this war on the behalf of the Russians, on behalf of the bad guys. And we shouldn't forget it. In any case, I just think it's an important point to mention because even I get duped sometimes thinking of China as a developing country and not as a hegemonic communist dictatorship, which is what they are. Again, they're not nice. The country, as far as the government, these are not nice people. They murder their own citizens. These are not nice people as far as the government goes. Anyway, China wants slow creeping imperialism. That's a great way to put it, Joshua. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Right. It's this, they want to, the China, you should read up on it. The stuff that the Chinese are doing in Asia, the bullying they're doing of Asian countries, especially like the Philippines. Thank you, Marie. Taiwan, we know the bullying they're doing to the country of Taiwan, by the way. But what they're doing to the Philippines too, constantly, they're trying to get the land. Japanese land as well. They're like the Soviets, honestly. They're imperialists, but they maybe are going a little more slowly. Thank you, Marie. All right. A little bit more here. Putin released his own, Putin released his own peace plan today. This was hilarious. Thank you, Tom. I don't even want to call it wasn't a peace plan. I'm only calling it a peace plan so you can kind of put it in its place. It's not a peace plan. Literally, Putin came out and said today that as like a precursor to negotiating with Ukraine, he has some conditions, and these conditions could lead to peace. Okay, listen to what these freaking conditions are that Putin has for peace in Ukraine. 1, Ukraine unilaterally surrenders. Okay, this is the negotiation for Putin. Ukraine surrenders. Ukraine gives up all of its territory that the Russians have already invaded. Just gives it up, writes it off forever, and says, okay, all of our land can now be Russia. It gets better than that. Not only is Russia claiming, I will show you the map. Not only is Russia saying that all the land they're currently occupying here, kind of going up here, that all of that Ukraine has to give them and literally put it in writing and say, it's Russia, it's never coming back. But Ukraine has to give it land Russia isn't even occupying because the Russians haven't fully occupied the 2 provinces in eastern Ukraine. They don't have all of it. The Russians said, you need to give us all of the land in the 2 eastern provinces, even the land we don't occupy yet. You've got to fire Zelensky because Putin doesn't like Zelensky. It's dealing with the Russian government is like dealing with children, right? He doesn't like Zelensky. Zelensky has to leave. So Zelensky has to leave. They've got to replace Zelensky with a puppet government, a pro-Russian puppet government. So in other words, Ukraine has to literally cut off its own, basically emasculate the entire country and make them just a dictatorship vassal of Russia, like Belarus, like Eastern European dictatorships. And there was something else. There was something else here. Oh, and they're not allowed to join NATO. They have to swear that they'll never join NATO. Oh my freaking God. Well, anybody who's saying that's not what you heard, you need to Google before you come to the show because the story has been all over the news for the last 12 hours. So it's exactly what the deal is. It's insane. What is annoying is Associated Press and some of the media folks are presenting this as being like, oh, Putin offers a peace plan. He didn't offer a peace plan. He literally said, surrender Dorothy. I put a clip up on TikTok today. I put a video on TikTok talking about Putin's peace plan. And I said, what it reminded me of was this wonderful scene in the science fiction movie Independence Day. By the way, if you're into sci-fi at all and you haven't seen it, like if you're younger and you haven't seen it, Independence Day is a wonderful movie about aliens attacking Earth and all the countries get together to beat the alien. I got chills even tell you, it's a wonderful movie. As my Brazilian cousin told me once, and he was like, it's a stupid movie, but it's a great movie. He goes, it's so American. It's just a stupid movie. He goes, but it's so good. And I was like, thank you. That just defines it, right? Wonderful movie. But there's a scene in the movie where they capture one of the aliens, and the aliens are literally destroying all life on Earth. They've blown up all the major cities. They're killing everybody. and they capture one of the aliens. And the president of the United States goes up to the captured alien that's like in a glass tank and says, "What do you want us to do? Like, what do you want? Right? Why are you doing this? How can we stop the war?" And the alien responds, "Die." And it just, I put it in my clip for Ukraine because I was like, that's what Putin's peace plan is. What Putin wants from Ukraine, he wants Ukraine to die. And the problem is that is the Russian position on Ukraine. I've told you this from the beginning of the war. We had Russian officials saying publicly that Ukraine isn't a real country. The Russians think that the Ukrainians are deluded. I literally read this at the beginning of the war. A Russian official saying, you see, the problem is Ukrainians don't realize that they're actually Russians. They're deluded and they think they're an actual country and they think they're an actual nationality, but they're not, according to the Russians, right? And literally, the invasion was so that the Russians would come into Ukraine and they would educate the Ukrainians about the fact that they're not really Ukrainian, that they're really Russian. Now, by the way, what does that sound like? That is exactly what the Russians are doing to the children they kidnapped from Ukraine. The Russians kidnapped anywhere up to about 20,000 children from Ukraine. They still hold thousands of them. Putin has an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity because of the fact that he kidnapped these children. I mean, and we know this, right? One of the things the Russians are doing to these poor they literally kidnap Ukrainian children as like in wartime finding puppies on the ground or kittens on the ground. They literally found children and freaking kidnapped them. Absolutely horrific, okay? Kidnapped these children, took them to Russia, told the children, this was in the New York Times, the BBC, all of them, Financial Times has a huge investigation this week on this, told the children one of two things. Either your parents are dead, even though the parents weren't dead. They told them their parents were dead. The other thing they told the children, if the children knew the parents weren't dead, they said, your parents don't love you anymore. They don't want you. They abandoned, they gave you to us because they don't love you anymore. I mean, that telling the kid that your parents are dead is horrific. Telling a child, these are like a lot of these kids are 8 years old to 16 years old. Telling a child that your parents gave you away because they don't love you. Think of the damage that does. I mean, again, bad enough your parents dying, but your parents gave you away because they don't love you and they don't want you. Think of the damage that does. Right. In any case, what was I thinking about? I forgot what I was talking about that got me thinking of this as far as sort of the Russian play of what they do. But as far as the, sort of Ukraine. Oh, I know what it was. As far as the peace thing, the Russians are coming back. If this war ends right now, they're coming back. They're coming back to Ukraine. They're going to, in 5 years, in 8 years, they're going to invade again and take the rest of Ukraine. They think Ukraine isn't a real country. They think the Ukrainians are not a real nationality. They think the Ukrainians are Russians and they want the country back because, thank you, Rocket Bob, because frankly, they're pissed that the Soviet Union exploded and they lost their dictatorship. And well, they still have a dictatorship, but they lost their empire. The empire is gone. Thank you, Rocket Robbie. It's pretty sick. It's pretty sick. Yeah, so the troll thing is kind of funny. People are mentioning we had a lot of trolls on TikTok. The trolls are very upset with me. This week, the trolls have been back in general, but they're very upset on TikTok because I've been reporting on TikTok about the fact that the Russians, basically talking about kidnapping, forced Indians, Nepalese, Sri Lankans, and Africans, citizens, to fight for them in Ukraine against their will. And huge stories this week, the Cubans as well, actually. Huge stories this week on several of them. And the Russian trolls are pissed. So I must have done 6 videos today about this topic because the Russian trolls were so pissed. I was like, okay, you're pissed? I'll do another one. And my favorite one was one of the Russian trolls goes, you're lying. I can't find news stories on this anywhere. So I said, good idea. So I did a video that was exclusively, thank you, 666, little crazy 666, but okay. I did a video where I went and I got the Indian newspapers and I found like 6 clippings from Indian newspapers, including like the top ones, like the Delhi, TV, New Delhi TV, whatever, and showed 6 different stories from the top Indian newspapers about the Russians basically forcing Indian men to fight for them. Some of these Indian men went over to Russia for tourism and they kidnapped them and forced them to fight at the front in Ukraine. So anyway, that's been my day. But I think we have a lot of Russian trolls because people are very upset. Oh, interesting, MZ. Well, you know, it's funny that you said that because a lot of the Eastern Europeans, I don't know if your dad is Eastern European, but a lot of the Eastern Europeans have been talking about that, about what Russia is doing with Ukraine is very much what Russia did in World War II, and what they did to the Estonians, the Latvians, the Lithuanians. It's also what the Germans did too. Zelensky said that today, by the way. He came out and accused, which you know is going to piss off Putin. He came out and accused Putin today of Putin's peace proposal, where he said Ukraine should just give up all its land and give up even more land because there's traditional Russian speakers living there. He accused him of being a Nazi. He said, you are proposing the exact same thing that the Nazis proposed. That was the whole idea of World War II, which the Russians, I mean, it is the best way. Thank you, Nicholas. It is the best way to piss off the Russians. Thank you, Brian, to piss off Putin. Thank you, Courtney, to just go after him on the Nazi thing, because the Russians love to pretend like they single-handedly won World War II. They don't want you to know, by the way, that the Russians were actually allies of the Germans in World War II. The Russians actually helped get World War II started. They reached a peace deal with the Germans and said, go ahead and invade Europe. We're not going to attack you. Feel free to do whatever you want. And because the Germans were freed up from not worrying about the Russians in the East, they were able to attack the rest of Europe. It was only a couple of years later when the Germans then, by the way, can't trust the German. I mean, can't trust the World War II Germans. Thank you, Elizabeth. The Germans turned around and then attacked the Russians, the Soviets. And oops, sorry, no more peace treaty. And now the Russians like to pretend, oh, we were always anti-German in World War II. They were literally the Germans' allies in World War II. Yeah. Michael McAllister just said Germany and Russia invaded Poland together. Yeah. I mean, absolutely incredible what these guys did. So anyway, my point is the Russians, thank you, Jackie. The Russians try to deny them, or try to claim that they were the most important country ever. They single-handedly won World War II, blah, 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 blah. And they don't bother mentioning the fact that they helped cause World War II because they were allies of the Nazis. Well, that is why Zelensky is saying this, right? I mean, right, JR says Lebensraum. I can never pronounce it correctly. That's why Zelensky is saying this, not simply because it's true that what Putin's proposing in his peace proposal is actually what the Nazis were doing, but it will piss off the Russians. It'll piss Putin off to accuse him of being a Nazi, because the Russians define their entire identity as being anti-Nazi. They literally, when they go after dissidents, recently we've had this, when they go after dissidents and people who speak up in the country and give their political views, you get thrown in jail in Russia for that, right? Just for simply having a political view opposite the government. They accuse them of Nazism. Like, that's one of the charges they throw at dissidents who simply intellectually disagree publicly. They accuse them of Nazism. I mean, this is what Russia is. This is what Russia is. Oh, we do. You are having fun today, Ash. I can tell. Yeah, the Russian trolls, by the way, and I'll say this to all the Russian trolls who are here, keep commenting on this stuff because you're giving me more ideas for videos. I had so much fun today for doing my videos on TikTok, because the Russian trolls were so pissed off about me reporting on the fact that they basically forced all of these men from developing countries, Africa, Sri Lanka, Nepal, India, Cuba. By the way, they did Cuba last fall. They also nabbed the Cubans. Thank you, Sekenes. They got so pissed, I just did more videos. It was very funny. Anyway, all right, let's go more here. Zelensky met with the Pope at the G7 in Italy. Thank you, Marcy. Though he is now at the Swiss conference. Prosecutors at the International Criminal Court are investigating alleged Russian cyber attacks on civilian infrastructure as possible war crimes. The Czech artillery initiative, there's some updates. Thank you, David, Kronos, and David again for gifts here, and Marcy. You're going to be muted for 5 minutes for being a dick. There we go. Bye-bye. Occasionally I like to mute. I know Ash gets to them anyway, but it's like, it gives me a catharsis being able to occasionally just like mute people who are being jerks. I miss being a mod. The artillery shells that the Czech government has organized for Ukraine. Remember, they found about 1.5 million artillery shells around the world. The first ones are already arriving in Ukraine. It is not clear what the timetable is for when these arrive, but the first artillery shells are arriving, which is a big deal. According to the latest news I found, the Czech government has identified 800,000 shells. They're looking to identify 1.5 million. So the latest I read was they've only identified 800,000. So that's the first thing, okay? The second thing is it's not clear how much money they have. They need, I think, $2.5 billion, more or less. It's not clear how much they've got. So that's still an ongoing issue. But nonetheless, this is great news. Bad news, however, North Korea, the South Korean Defense Ministry reports that North Korea sent containers to Russia that could contain as many as 4.8 million artillery shells. They don't know. I mean, because again, this is based on intelligence, satellites, and everything else. The good news is half those shells might not work. The bad news is even if half of them don't work, that's 2.5 million shells, which is a hell of a lot, right? Ukraine is hoping to get 1.5 million from the Czech initiative someday. So obviously not good news. Germany announced a really big aid package for Ukraine, a really good aid package for Ukraine today. They announced a new military aid package that includes 3 HIMARS rocket launchers. The HIMARS, are those, they shoot and scoot, the rocket launchers. Thank you, Eva. That are basically on the back of a truck, and they can fire at the Russians and then drive away before the Russians can hit them back. 3 of them, which is great. 20 Marder infantry fighting vehicles and 10 Leopard main battle tanks. The package also includes 2 Iris-T air defense systems, 21,000 rounds of 155 millimeter ammunition, and 2 Beaver bridge laying vehicles. Sky News. Okay, some of Ukrainians' attacks. Ukrainian forces have struck a military airfield in Russia targeting warplanes and glide bomb facilities used to launch deadly attacks against Ukraine. The source said the operation last night was part of a sustained campaign to degrade the Russian Air Force. Satellite imagery shared by the source purported to show 2 Su-34 fighter bombers that were destroyed. That's good. Ukraine's 68th Jaeger Brigade says it destroyed an entire Russian tank company. I asked Cal about this. He says a Russian tank company should be about 12 tanks, which is a big deal. I mean, destroying 12 tanks like in a day is huge. So that was great news. Ukraine's unmanned aerial vehicles, in other words, they're drones, they're flying drones, hit a Russian oil refinery overnight. That's good. And finally, thank you, Bryce, and thank you, Colin, as well for the rose. Finally, 3. This was an interesting story. This story, either the Ukrainians had a hand or Russian incompetence had a hand. I don't know which. 3 Russian servicemen have reportedly died following an ammunition explosion in a Russian town about 4 miles north of the Ukrainian border. Keep in mind, it's 4 miles north of the Ukrainian border, which kind of makes it a little suspect as to whether Ukraine had a hand in this. Shells from a thermobaric warhead, also called an aerosol bomb, exploded, according to Russian telegram channels. Now, the thermobaric weapon is the really nasty weapon that pretty much lights the air on fire. It throws some kind of chemical or whatever in the air and then sets the chemical on fire. The air gets on fire. If you're a human being there, they're like reverse pressure of the air exploding pulls all the air out of your body. I mean, it's a disgusting, it ruptures all your organs. It's vile. It's a horrific way to die. Thank you, Florian. It's a horrific weapon. Exploded on the Russians. Now, I will say, the Russians being the Russians, this could have exploded from sheer incompetence. We were seeing this with a lot of other Russian munitions and things. They don't store them well. They didn't even, at the beginning of the war, they didn't even store their tanks and their vehicles well. Like their vehicles that had wheels on it, you're supposed to rotate the wheels. You're supposed to turn the vehicle, every day or whatever it is, so the sunlight hits different parts of the vehicle. The Russians just left these things in place for months, and their vehicles, the wheels were blowing up. Remember the tanks were blowing up? The tanks, the trucks, the Russian supply trucks, the wheels were just blowing up, and they were getting stuck. The same thing was happening with ammunition, that ammunition was like blowing up because it wasn't stored correctly. So I don't know. I'm very intrigued by this. Again, it could be, thank you, Suzanne. It could be that the Russians are just incompetent and they blew themselves up. It could also be that Ukraine did something because it's 4 miles, which is like 6 kilometers from the Russian border. Did I say 4 miles? Either 4 miles or 4 kilometers. I forget which. 4 miles. So that would be maybe 6 kilometers. So it's right close to the border, right? I did not see, Kathy Taylor says, Canada donated $5 billion to Ukraine at the meeting yesterday. I did not see that. That's great. Excellent. Okay, did not see that at all. Good to hear. Excellent. Thank you, Canada. Anyway, so that is it for the news tonight. As always, we're going to hang out and talk, guys. We're not going anywhere. First, I go through the news, and then we do the part of the show where we hang out. I can more closely read your guys' questions and comments, etc. I, as always, will show you a couple of the cool auction items we've got. We do auctions every week to benefit Ukraine. Half the money from the auctions I send back to Ukraine. The money we make, half the money goes to me because I do this full time. That's why I'm always hitting you guys up for gifts and for the memberships that you subscribe to, because I do this full time. And in order to afford to do this, I literally pay my bills with your guys' gifts. So thank you for that. Thank you, Blue Ariel, who's one of our very generous members, by the way. Blue Ariel is. So a few different things just to show you again. Probably our favorite thing that we've got, the last one I've got for now, it is an old Russian shell from a BMP from Bakhmut, reportedly. And the Ukrainians carved it into a Ukrainian trident in the front, which is a symbol of Ukraine, and an angel, which is very cool. These are super popular. They're doing very well in the auctions because people love these. I like it because it's metal and it pretty much, thank you, Florian. Thank you for love. You can pretty much use this if you want. Oh, sorry, Jesse. I don't want to miss some of the other folks. Multiple Florian gifts. You can pretty much use this as a candle holder as far as I'm concerned because it's metal. But it's nice because it stands up on its own. I think they're really cool. Another thing I will say that's doing very well. Do I have it here? I do have it here. I'm intrigued this is doing well, but maybe I'm not surprised because I saved the best ones for last, and these are like the 3 best ones I've got. This is a trivet, as Ash has taught me. It is, I could keep calling it a pot holder. It's the thing you put on your table when you're serving a hot dish, so the hot dish sits on it and doesn't burn the table, right? It smells wonderful. It is made from juniper, Vlad says. It is wood, of course. You can see it's like multiple layers of wood. I'll show you guys there kind of how it's made. And it's really pretty. You could probably stain this if you wanted to, by the way, too, because I'm looking at it. The only thing is with a stain, you might want to be careful because you're putting heat on it. So maybe not. Thank you, Cool, for the gift. Vlad said once you put hot dishes and things on this, you can actually smell the wood, which is really neat. Thank you, Cool. Anyway, very cool. And also staining it might screw it up too. But this is doing insanely well. I'm so glad to see you guys bidding on this. I've got, I think, 3 of these. Not a placemat because look at the size of it. It's basically, I would say it's 7. Oh, I've got my tape measure. I think it's 7 inches. It is 7. It's almost 7.5 inches. It's almost 7.5 inches. Alexa, I'm going to go with 19 centimeters. Let's see. Alexa, how many centimeters is 7.5 inches? Ooh. Alexa, set your volume to 30%. Alexa, how many centimeters is 7.5 inches?
7.5 inches is 19.05 centimeters.
Oh, 19.05. Hello. I said 19. I've been trying to learn the metric system because of this show with you guys. Because we have so many non-Americans, really, and I think the whole world uses metric, other than the Brits a little bit, maybe the Canadian. I don't know if we've polluted Canada on this too, but the Brits, we share, because they, I blame it on the Brits. They're the ones who screwed us up in the beginning because we were a colony. But in any case, yes, so 7.5 inches, 19 centimeters, but very pretty, very pretty. And I will skip it for now. We've got a lot of cool Ukrainian candy, a lot of other cool stuff. So go check out the auction items. Where can you join the auctions? You guys, all right, it's over at Discord community. The way you find Discord, if you are on TikTok, go to my profile. Look for the Linktree link. It's a link that says linktree.com or something like that, or Linktree, whatever. Click it, and the very first link that comes up is Discord. It's basically a list of my links. First one that comes up is Discord. Click it and go over there. You got to go and follow the rules on Discord and click I accept and all that garbage. It's free, but and then the bidding's on the left in the auctions. For YouTube, you guys can find the auctions via the link that's in the description of the show. Same link, Linktree, click it. First thing that comes up is Discord, click Discord. So anyway, there's a lot of cool stuff. There's other stuff too. There's a really cool Ukrainian, I call it a Ukrainian voodoo doll. It's not a voodoo doll, but I call it a voodoo doll. There's a kind of a cool piece of a Ukrainian fighter jet that crashed, but I think it's kind of cool. I mean, I know it's a Ukrainian jet that crashed, so we don't like that, but it still is kind of cool because it's a moment. I mean, it's basically a memento of the war, and I like it because it's yellow and blue, which is cool because it's the Ukrainian colors. I know it's a Ukrainian plane, so I'm 50-50 on it, but I think it's a cool memento of the war. Because let's put it this way: if you're on Ukraine's side, it's a cool memento, I think, because I hold that piece in reverence because it represents somebody who was fighting for Ukraine. Put it that way. So all depends on your attitude approaching it. In any case, like I said, there's about 8 other things. I won't show you the rest of them right now. So anyway, let's hang out and talk, guys. So give me comments, give me questions. Get a wheel. Yeah. Some people have had that problem too, and I don't know why, Nick. It doesn't make sense why that link doesn't work for some people. I don't know why. It is the correct link. Mods, does somebody want to go to Linktree and copy the Discord link and just put it in the chat here? Because if you do that, even though you can't click a link in the chat, people can see it. If it'll let you, I don't even know if it'll let you put the link. It may not. But for some reason, user 8250, I smell a troll. We're talking about Linktree and donating to Ukraine and stopping Russian hegemony, and you're asking if I'm a Democrat? Why? Don't Republicans believe in freedom? Don't Republicans believe in standing up to America's enemies? Don't they believe in defending America and our values and our allies? I don't know. That sounds like kind of a confession from me. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, TikTok does not like links. That I know. I go live on Discord. I go live on Discord after this show sometimes when the show ends early. Otherwise, tomorrow morning I'm going live on Discord with the monthly subscribers. But we do it when the show ends early. Tonight I can't, but Friday night I got plans. Woo-woo. But we will try to do another show next week if we can. And yeah, Amanda, folks are thinking we may have a troll over on YouTube. Worth checking out. I've not seen the comments, so you know how to check it out. Lisa, I don't understand what your question is on TikTok. No, I rail against people who don't believe in defending freedom, AJ. AJ says you rail against Republican followers and they have a different view. When you have a different view on freedom and democracy and standing up to America's enemies, I don't respect that. Yeah, it's a different view. Do you have a different view on World War II as well? Am I supposed to respect that if you were, right? Just because someone has a different view doesn't mean their view is respectable, right? That's not the way it works. Americans often confuse that because we have very strong freedom of speech rights in America. The government, and actually it usually is that the government cannot oppress your speech. The government can't throw you into jail. For example, in the US, I remember there were protests in Britain, and I remember talking to Callum and some of you guys about this. People were holding signs, and you could get arrested for the sign you're holding. Not in America. The only way you could get arrested for the sign you were holding is if your sign, and I've got to be careful because TikTok over-regulates everything. Your sign would literally have to be an immediate call to violence. Like let's go, hurt the policeman right here or so, right? It would literally have to be an immediate call for violence, and then you could be arrested. Otherwise, you can hold Nazi protests in America easily. You could even say you want, I've got to be careful how I say this because TikTok overregulates, like I said, but you could say you want all Jews to no longer exist violently. You can say that. You can't say, let's go get them right now. Then you'd be in trouble because that literally is a call to violence. That's considered an action. But an opinion, I wish they were all dead, you could do. That's allowed in America. But what happens though, thank you, Pedro, on the sort of far left and the far right, people get confused and they think that freedom of speech rights in America give you not just the right to speak, but the right to speak unquestioningly. And the idea that basically it's just my opinion, meaning don't criticize me. I'm allowed to have an opinion. No, you're allowed to have an opinion and not get thrown in jail for it, right? This isn't Russia. We don't throw people in prison for their opinions. You are not allowed to have an opinion and live scot-free without criticism. And what you get from a lot of the people on the right and the left, it's usually the fringes, they confuse it, and they think that their right to free speech means their right to speech that is unfettered and uncriticized. And it's not. You are not allowed to you are not allowed. You're allowed to in hate speech. Hate speech is legal, Ash. Hate speech is legal in America. There are no hate speech laws. They're unconstitutional. In some other countries, like Canada, cracks down on hate speech much more. In America, there are no laws against hate speech. They are unconstitutional by our Constitution. Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It is you are very protected, but not from criticism. And people get confused and think it means you can't criticize me. I have the right. I'm going to put my shirt on the wall, my jacket on the wall again, because it's coming and hitting you guys here in the sunlight. But yeah, so people get confused and they get upset when you criticize them and say, well, your views are abhorrent. And you can't say that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And it's frankly our duty it is our duty to criticize. If you are defending, the Russians in this war, then yeah, you deserve to be criticized. Anyway. Well, the hate speech laws in Canada are fascinating. Europe too, because we don't do that. I mean, in Germany, didn't you guys at one point, maybe you still do, isn't there like a ban on the Nazi party or something in Germany or something like that? Thank you, user 424. Thank you, Elizabeth. Or is there a ban on the literature or something? I remember there being a ban on something like that. That stuff is not the case here. We have Nazis. I mean, they're this big, and you better believe the government keeps an eye on them, right? I mean, the FBI, the police keep an eye on them. Thank you, Jen. But they can't go to jail for being a Nazi. Not in America. Yeah. Yep. You get arrested. So in Europe, I mean, is it just Germany or other, can you be a member of the Nazi party in Germany or other European countries? Just curious. Thank you, Eddie New. Well, I know the AFD. Well, yeah, that's its own issue, but maybe we'll call them neo-fascist. But I mean, you could deny the Holocaust in the U.S. Absolutely. Is it illegal to deny the Holocaust in certain countries? You absolutely can't. I mean, it's abhorrent. You're a horrible human being, but people do it all the time here. The crazy right wingers do. Donald Trump had lunch with one of the Holocaust deniers, this neo-Nazi. What's his name? Nick Fuentes. Trump had lunch with him, or dinner. He had dinner with the guy. I mean, just a couple of years ago. In Germany, you can go to prison. How interesting. How interesting. Okay, thank you, Mad Max, for the lightning. But again, it depends. In the American Constitution, it's literally written into our Constitution. We don't have a choice. We have to allow it, right? Also, Germany's got a different history, right? I mean, I have no problem with Germany having special rules about being a Nazi, right? Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Jackie. They've got unique rules. Canada's interesting because Canada does have some hate speech rules. I know this because we got Dr. Laura kicked off, this woman back 25 years ago. Friends and I got her show kicked off. She had a new TV show, this right-winger, crazy right-winger, anti-gay, everything. Dr. Laura Schlesinger. And she was having a new TV show, and friends and I got together and got her show canceled. It was like it was the first successful TV boycott ever in America. It was 5 of us volunteering. It was amazing. No one paid us. We did for free. But the, what was I going to say with this with Dr. Laura? In Canada, she got kicked off almost immediately because her speech was considered hateful. That was me. Yes, Annie. Well, it's funny. The people who remember the Dr. Laura controversy, Google it. That was me. Me and 4 other friends. But in Canada, she was in trouble with the regulators, with the TV regulators, because it was considered hate speech. Thank you, Real Life Works. And they just have different rules there. And the regulators came down, and she had and they canceled her show like in 2 weeks because the regulators came in and said, and the TV network said, this is ridiculous. We're Canada. We're not doing this crazy American right-wing, lunacy. Thank you, Mark. Whereas in America, no, TV regulator can't go, you're anti-gay. I mean, it just doesn't work, So anyway. Oh, okay. The dog wants more water. One moment. we're at that part of the show where the dog gets water. Okay. All right. There you go. All right. All right. Okay. The dog has her water. 1999 is when it happened. The website was called Stop Dr. Laura. Stop Dr. Laura. Google it as one word. Stop Dr. Laura. So Stop Dr. Laura. Laura. It was really cool. I mean, it was, like I said, it was a big deal. I mean, it was a really big deal in the papers and everywhere. I was all over CNN. It was quite fun. It was like a year. It was a lot of work and for free. And back then, we didn't really have PayPal. We had no way to raise money. We raised $12,000 doing this almost full time for a year. But it was fun, and we destroyed Paramount. Paramount was putting on the TV show. We destroyed them. It was pretty fun. Yeah. Anyway, and it was good. Will there be a world war? No, because Russia can't afford to have a world war. Russia is not doing well in Ukraine, guys. Ukraine's not doing well in Ukraine, but Russia's not either, right? I mean, and this is speaking honestly, both countries are kind of stuck right now. In the last month or so, Russia got a couple little villages, but I'm talking little villages of a couple thousand people, right? It didn't. It's as if whatever big city is near you, the Russians, let's pretend you're fighting with the Russians and they're outside your big city. It's like they grabbed a suburb, except it was a suburb of like 5,000 people, right? That literally the big Russian victory of the last month was a couple suburbs of 5,000 people. That's not much of a change. Both countries are kind of stuck. Russia's stuck. Russia doesn't know how to get out of this. Frankly, they don't know how to win it and they don't know how to get out of it. The only way Russia wins it is if Trump becomes president and cuts off all American aid. Then Russia can win it. Then it depends on how much money and how much aid the Europeans have and whether they can keep up enough. Not clear that they can, but that's the only way Russia wins it is if Donald Trump decides to help his friend Vladimir Putin, which he already did. Trump cut off the aid for 6 months. It only started up again 2 months ago because Republicans felt enough pressure, but otherwise, scary stuff. In any case, no, my point was it's not going to start a war with Russia because the Russians are having a hard time winning this war. Okay. If you are Russia and you're having a hard time beating Ukraine, is your next step to say, well, I'm having a hard time beating little old Ukraine on my border. I think what would be easier than fighting Ukraine would be also going to war against Poland, Finland, Sweden, America, Britain, Germany, France, Italy, right? Add everybody else to the list, right? Canada, right? Thank you, James Althouse, for the gift. I mean, there's no way, right? I mean, again, think about it. If you're Russia and you're having a hard time winning the war, you don't want to declare war on another 32 countries. That's what will happen if Russia decides to, World War III. If they go World War III, they lose. They're already not winning. But so think about it again. It doesn't make sense, right? That's my point. The Russians are not stupid. The Russians are not crazy. And I think too many people, and frankly, it is Putin's job to convince you he's crazy. Thank you, Celtic Archer. It's his job to convince you he's crazy. Putin needs to convince you, thank you, Annie, oh my God, what will he do? He's crazy, right? He'd bomb us. He'd use nukes because he's crazy. This is the crazy. He wants you to think that. He's not crazy. He wants you to think he is, so you're going to be so scared that you'll say, we just have to end this war, right? He wants you to think that he's willing to start a world war because he's crazy. So let's just stop now. No, he's not. Putin's very sane. He's very rational. But anyway, that's my point is whenever you get worried about this world war stuff, you've got to think about the fact that Russia is not winning. They're not losing, but they're not winning. They're stuck. Why would they want to go to war against 32 other countries, including America, when they can't even beat Ukraine? Mind you, think about it too. We've given them a lot of weapons. We haven't given them our best weapons, right? Even the tanks we gave them our old tanks. We gave them our old tanks and we took off the really good armor. We didn't even give them our good armor on our tanks. If the Russians had to take on our good tanks with the good armor, kiss their asses goodbye. The planes, we're only finally giving them F-16s and we haven't given them yet. So up until now, thank you, JMC. Thank you, Lise. Up until now, the Russians haven't had to deal with NATO's Air Force at all. In a few months, they'll have a few fighter jets, a few F-16s. but a few. We don't know how many. And they'll be Ukrainian pilots. They won't be NATO pilots. They won't be American pilots, right? I mean, right? It's imagine what happens if Russia has to take on the American Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, let alone, I mean, I know America, I'm sure there's a number of amazing air forces too. The Europeans have, right? And we know the Swedes have got a great plane. We know the French have great fighter jets, but imagine having to take on the U.S. Air Force, which they're not. Imagine having to take on the U.S. Navy, which they're not. Our cruise missiles on our submarines, they're not, right? I mean, it is the U.S. Marines. I mean, they're not. They do not. The last thing the Russians need is taking on the rest of us now. So Putin's job, and by the way, I didn't say the F-16s. The F-16s that we're giving Ukraine, guess what we've got? We've got F-35s. The F-16s is our old plane. Our new plane is like fifth generation, I guess we call it, or whatever. The Russians don't even have a fifth generation plane. Their planes are old. So our F-35s will destroy them. I mean, there's no way Russia wants to go. We are simply better militarily than they are. I mean, it's a fact. Now, no one wants war with Russia because there'd still be a lot of people killed. Thank you, JMC, right? And there's still always the danger of it getting worse and nuclear weapons, right? I mean, there's always that danger. But that same danger applies to Russia, right? So the point is, I'm going to stop rehashing this, but it doesn't benefit Russia for the war to break out with the West, because then they've got even more countries to fight and they're not doing well just against Ukraine. The S-500 we're going to see. Mel asks about the S-500 in Crimea. So the S-500, come here, you, of course. My little dog comes in, of course, with sticks hanging from her mouth because she had to go eat sticks because that's who she is. Thank you for love. The S-500 is a new sort of anti-aircraft system. Oh, sorry, Bash. I'll get to you next. Is a new anti-aircraft system of the Russians that they put S-500 that they put near the Kerch Bridge in southern Ukraine. Does it work? A lot of people think it's not really done testing, that the Russians just kind of wheeled it out and it's not even ready yet. I think a lot of people wonder how long is it going to take for the Ukrainians to blow it up, So let's see what happens, right? I mean, it's clearly a sign that he's afraid of the bridge getting hit. Maybe it'll stop the Ukrainians from blowing up the bridge, or maybe the Ukrainians will hit it with multiple missiles and blow it up out of the sky, off the ground. So who knows, right? But is also, by the way, we also don't know how many they've got, right? It's not like at this point, it's not clear that they've got a lot. They may have one. It's not clear how many they've got. So we'll see. But it'll be pretty funny if the Ukrainians blow it up. Mike says the S-500 is $250 million, not much of an upgrade to the S-400. Only one is in existence. Question is whether it works, I guess. Yeah. Thank you, Carla. Sasha, I don't know what you want from me. She's begging again. Don't beg from me. A Russian stealth jet got taken out. Another one, Nick? Excuse me. What happened? Was it another Su-57 or whatever? Oh, James. Sorry. Wait. Bash had a question real quick. Bash Brannigan had a question. Can Russia go into actual real bankruptcy? I don't know. I don't know how country finances work. I don't know. I just don't understand how finances work at a national level in countries, right? By bankruptcy, first of all, do you mean foreign debt, like debt that they owe debtors on the outside? You know what I mean? I just don't know how the debt works. For Love and Peace says they have before. I don't understand the macroeconomics enough. I don't know. I mean, countries can keep printing money. Now, when you print money, all of a sudden you start screwing up your economy, you start causing inflation. So you can do stuff like that. I mean, Roma says like a default, but again, I don't quite understand how defaults work. I know in America, the Republicans have threatened defaults. Now interesting. Oh no, that sounds, I remember that. Yeah. Common Sense just posted a link to Wikipedia, the 2022 Russian debt default. Remember the Russians couldn't pay their debt because we froze the assets and everything. And it was coming up on a few different payments in a row that the Russians were defaulting on. We stopped hearing about it though. Remember, we weren't hearing about it anymore. Right. They defaulted in 2022, but what finally happened? I don't know whether it destroyed their credit rating or what it did. You know? Yeah, I don't know, Bash. Was there? Sorry, James. I did thank James. Yeah, James just had a super sticker. I did thank James for that. Yes, sorry, Bash. I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, they were about to default. There was like 30 more days. There was all this kind of stuff. The trolls are very triggered, Blue Ariel. You know. Oh well, we're doing our job. The Russian trolls are upset. Oh, well, sorry. Actually, what I did notice today, which was interesting, some of the Russian trolls on TikTok in the comments, one of them, because they kept saying like, it's a lie, you don't have proof. Well, I finally did a video I did several videos about the Russians basically forcing Indian nationals to fight for their military. Some of these Indian guys went to Russia on vacation and they kidnapped them and put them in the military. I mean, crazy stuff the Russians, and of course, then they're at the front line fighting, right? And the Russians were denying it all day. So I did a video. I was telling you earlier, I did a video in which I said, okay, somebody wrote, there are no news stories claiming this. So I said, okay, or we don't trust the BBC. I said, okay, great. Then I'll pull up 6 Indian newspapers. And I pulled up 6 Indian newspapers, including like a big national TV chain, like the New Delhi TV. And I did a video showing all the Indian papers and what they were claiming the Russians did, right? Somebody writes in the comments something to the effect of, you're lying. None of the Indian press says this. And I realized again that they didn't even mention India. I realized again that the trolls are working off of pieces of paper they're given, or paper, digital paper, and they're given talking points and they come here. They come here on TikTok, on YouTube, in the comment section on TikTok, and they don't even watch the video. They literally look at the video and say, you lie. My favorite is proof. I had to ban the word proof on TikTok because they would write proof. It's just a troll talking point. But very typically they come and they don't actually watch the video and they're not even responding to the substance. They have just talking points. Thank you, Ian. And it was just funny to see on this Indian story today that the talking points were generic. And I could tell they were generic because they made no sense. If you watch the first 5 seconds of the video, the talking point didn't make sense. But literally, it's just, anyway, this is what they do. It's what they do. Again, if you can't win an argument on the facts, hire Russian trolls, That's too bad. Common sense about India and Russia. Yeah, well, yep. The Sri Lankans got duped. The Africans got duped. The Indians, the Nepalese, the Cubans got duped last year. The French are giving the Mirage 5000-2, I believe. Am I correct? I know it's 5000-2, I think it's called. I remember it even had 2000-5. Is it I think it's 2000-5 is what it is. Thank you. Yep, Prexa said 2000-5. Because I remember at first thinking, are there 5 or is it 2000-5? It's 2000-5. Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Snowblade. Thank you, Addie, for the gifts. Well, I was going to do an update on the Russian economy. Ricky asked if the Russian economy is tanking. There are new indicators of the Russian economy not doing well. I don't have it all in front of me, but the inflation rate just went up. Officially, the inflation rate went up to like 8.3%. Unofficially, the Russian inflation rate is as high as 20%. Guys, we're at like 3.3% and people are freaking here. They're at 20% in Russia. Thank you, Lola. Russian food production has tanked. They've had a drought going on, and the farmland is a disaster in Russia. So that's a whole other problem. But they're going to keep going. Our economy is doing amazingly, Zach. Actually, no. You need to Google it. No, that's an old wives' tale. Yeah, that's like conspiracy theory stuff. Our economy, we've got the best economy in 50 years. Our inflation went up last year, unfortunately, and the companies took advantage of it, especially food companies, just raised all their freaking prices. But the economy is doing ridiculously well. Unemployment, lowest level practically ever. Like I said, number of jobs, highest level ever. Economic growth, higher than during the Trump years, higher than during the Obama years. Literally, doesn't matter if it sounds true or not. You need to Google it and find an expert. I know this stuff. All the experts, all the TV stations, all the media was reporting on the fact that this economy is the strongest economy in 50 years. Again, if you're watching Fox News or other crazy places that are partisan, they're going to lie to you. But yeah, no, absolutely. I'm telling you, again, look at the way I cover the show. I criticize Biden left and right on Ukraine. And I admit the Russians, are tied with the Ukrainians. Ukrainians aren't winning, but the Russians aren't winning either. But I'm not going to lie to you. The economy is the best economy, like some of the best economy we've had in 50 years. But inflation is up. Otherwise, it's not up anymore. Inflation's doing okay now. It's like inflation's at 3.3% or so. We want it to be 2%, right? So that's the issue right now is it is still too high for America or for Europe. We want it to be 2%. That's why the Federal Reserve just announced they're not lowering interest rates right now, but they believe they will lower it in the fall, maybe a quarter point or something like that, because they don't want to necessarily cause inflation to go crazy. And unemployment is super low. Yeah. Unemployment is at 3.7, 3.9? Alexa, what's the current U.S. unemployment rate?
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the United States unemployment rate for May 2024 was 4.0%, up from 3.9%.
Okay, they're saying 4.0. 4.0. I said 3.9. The June rate hasn't been released yet. The last month's rate was 4%, which is great. Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy how good the unemployment rate is. And again, economic growth has been crazy. Wage growth, by the way, the inflation was a problem. No, inflation is no longer really a problem. Inflation was a problem a couple of years ago. Prices went up and prices are never going down. And that's bad. And I agree with you on that. Like the grocery stores, they took advantage of us left and right at the grocery stores. All the prices there are horrific, right? But wage growth, the growth of wages in America is growing more than inflation. So basically, overall, people's salaries are going up more than inflation, which means they're catching up with inflation now, which is great because that's what you want. There's always inflation every year. You want your salary growing more than inflation. Thank you, Elizabeth. And on average, people's salaries are growing more than inflation. Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, this is something where honestly, again, Biden so sucks at messaging that Biden just won't get out there and tell people you're wrong. The economy is doing great. I know everyone's told you it's doing poorly. It's not doing poorly. We have the best economy in 50 years. And you should just tell people. And for the people who go, that's not true. My favorite is when people do crap like they say, we have poor people. Of course we have poor people. This is capitalism, right? I don't want poor people. Poor people is not a sign of the economy not doing well this year, right? Poor people is a sign that we are America, unfortunately. Homeless people. No, bullshit. Homeless people. We've got homeless people. Yeah, it sucks. Guess what? We've always had homeless people. That is not a sign that the economy isn't doing well, that most Americans aren't doing. Most Americans are doing well. The economy is doing great. This is sort of the bullshit naysayers on the left and the right who try to do this. And they want to they want to attack Biden. So they make shit up about the economy. I don't go for that. I won't go for that. Bullshit if you're in a blue state. That's bullshit. It's the same economy nationwide. Inflation is down. Honestly, if things are worse in a red state, then I guess you need, in other words, that person just said, oh, well, if you live in a Democratic state, it's okay. Well, then if you live in a Republican-run state and the economy is so bad, maybe you should ask your Republican leaders why it's so bad, because they're the ones running the state. Thank you, Martin. So anyway. What else, guys? What else? I'm going to actually go soon because I got plans tonight. Woo-woo! It being Friday night. And I got to get up early tomorrow. We're going to the neighborhood is having, or there's a bunch of little yard sales and things we want to go to in the morning. And I've got my 11 a.m. show. I got my 11 euro show. Swan says, I hold an econ degree and agree 100% with you. And again, I'm not an economist. I studied economics, but in graduate school, I didn't study economics, right? I had economics classes. But I looked at the experts, and the experts, Fox News, the thing is Fox News, which is the Republican news station, even admitted it. Of the last several months of the economic stuff, every time it comes out that blockbuster unemployment or blockbuster employment numbers. Was it the last employment numbers last month that were the ones that were twice the amount, 2 or 3 times the amount of what they were supposed to be? Meaning the job growth was 2 to 3 times more than what the experts thought it was going to be. Meaning 2 to 3 times better. Now, this was on Fox News. Any case, all right, let me do a quick summary, guys, and then we'll call it quits. Okay. Tomorrow's our coffee talk. Remember, for the monthly subscribers on TikTok and YouTube, join us at 11 a.m. Eastern time US on TikTok, YouTube, or Discord, depending where your subscription is. Little news here. Zelensky arrives in Switzerland as 92 countries confirm their place at the peace summit taking place in Switzerland this weekend. Putin released his own peace plan that basically called on Ukraine to surrender unilaterally. It was bullshit. Zelensky met with the Pope in Italy. Prosecutors at the International Criminal Court are investigating alleged Russian cyber attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure as possible additional war crimes. Ammunition provided under the Czech-led initiative is now arriving in Ukraine. These are the artillery shells the Czech government got for Ukraine, with the help, of course, Europeans helping pay for it. North Korea sent containers to Russia that could contain as many as 4.8 million artillery shells, according to the South Korean Defense Ministry. Germany has announced a new military aid package for Ukraine that includes 3 HIMARS multiple rocket systems, 20 Marder infantry fighting vehicles, and 10 Leopard main battle tanks. All very good, which is great. Sky News says Ukrainian forces have struck a military airfield in Russia, targeting warplanes and glide bombs facilities. Ukraine's 68th Jaeger Brigade says it destroyed an entire Russian tank company. That would be about 12 Russian tanks, which would be huge in one attack. Ukraine's unmanned aerial drones in the region of Lysychansk district hit a Russian oil refinery, damaging fuel tanks. Again, great news. And 3 Russian servicemen have reportedly died following an ammunition explosion in a Russian town 4 miles or 6 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. All right, guys, I'm going to go so I can take a shower and get ready to go out tonight. Woo-woo. But I will see a bunch of you tomorrow morning. Otherwise, I will see you on Monday. So the regular show's back Monday at 6 o'clock Eastern time US. Thank you. Who's it? Ginger for the last minute gifts, and Zane for the last minute gifts. And otherwise, I'll see some of you guys tomorrow morning. Thank you, Randy. And otherwise, I'll see some of you tomorrow morning and the rest of you Monday. It may rain a little bit. Supposedly later tonight, 20% chance. It's looking sunny right now, which is good. Hopefully it doesn't rain because my dog freaks out. You know how that is. All right. Have a good night, guys. Talk to you all tomorrow. See some of you tomorrow and the rest of you later. Thank you, Super Hornet. Goat scream. Now, typically I do that for the trolls. I don't know whether we always have trolls on TikTok, so I guess it can be appropriate. Red wanted a goat scream, so you got the goat scream. All right. See you guys. All right.